But FemTech is so much more, or women's health is so much more. And the reason why I said it is I don't want to make women's health only about wellness. It's so much bigger and it's so much more concrete, and it's not that wellness is not important. If you keep focusing on wellness, a lot of people will continue to say, "Oh, wait, it's just sleep better, just do some meditation, just exercise, and all your problems will go away." No, women's health, it's a serious issue. There are serious health problems for women that are currently not being diagnosed or not being served. And it's much more than just go on a meditation app.
Hey, welcome back to Women Disrupting Tech, and thank you for tuning in to episode 161. My name is Dirk-Jan Lipkes, and this is the podcast that closes the funding gap in venture capital by amplifying the stories of female founders and their investors. Here's a question very few people in venture capital ask. What if the products everyone loves, the ones that are easiest to build and easiest to fund, are also easiest to copy and therefore exactly the wrong ones to invest in? That is exactly what Karen Berg believes about FemTech startups that focus on wellness. Karen Berg spent years in law and investment banking before becoming a partner at Healthy.Capital, a venture fund investing in digital health startups. In this episode, Karen and I talk about what actually makes a healthcare startup investable and why FemTech needs to move beyond wellness apps and into real diagnostics and treatment to get there. By listening, you'll learn why regulatory complexity like FDA approval and MDR compliance can work as a moat instead of a burden, how Healthy.Capital tracks its own impact across 6 dimensions, and how its portfolio companies have saved more than 300 million euros in healthcare costs since 2018, and why AI in women's health keeps running into the same wall, a lack of data. Plus, you'll hear why Karen doesn't believe FemTech should be the exclusive domain of women. So when you're ready to listen to a contrarian's view on FemTech, here's my conversation with Karen Berg. Karen Berg, good morning. Welcome to Women Disrupting Tech. Good to have you. Maybe good to start with a bit of background. Please tell us how you got into your current role as partner at Healthy.Capital.
Yes, thank you for having me, and good morning as well. I joined Healthy.Capital about a year and a half ago, but I have a long history in other stuff. So I started as a lawyer after my graduation from university. I worked at one of the big law firms here in Amsterdam and did that for about 9 years, where I was focusing on the financial sector. And after being a lawyer, I moved into the financial sector itself, first as an investment banker and then as a company secretary. And after the financial crisis, which I experienced quite intensively because I worked at 2 companies that were nationalized by the government, I decided to leave the financial industry and went into logistics. So I started working at PostNL, but I moved into more investor relations, working with listed companies, working with institutional investors, investing in those companies. Worked for multiple larger companies, which were all based in the Netherlands. And then after doing that, switching a bit between company secretary, investor relations, head of legal, also did some interim jobs. I had a not so nice experience with my brother. He became ill, and unfortunately, while everything was going in the right direction, initially we found out that he could not recover, and he passed away, unfortunately. And because of that, I decided to quit my job and took a sabbatical. And when I was done with not working, processing, I don't think I'll ever be done with processing the loss of my brother, but you have to go through the first phase of your mourning. I was ready to start working again. And then I put a post on LinkedIn saying, hey, this is me, this is what I've done, this is my experience, and I want to learn something new. And then Fortunately, I was approached by Healthy.Capital. Healthy.Capital is a VC fund that invests in digital solutions in healthcare and wants to keep healthcare in the Netherlands affordable and accessible for everyone. And they were looking for someone with my background, so someone who has a bit of a legal background, someone who had some experience with investor relations, not so much per se someone who has a lot of experience with big institutional and corporates, but that's what I had.
Mhm.
And it ultimately is also something that's very helpful in VC, although VC is obviously completely different. And then we had a very good match with the partners that were working there. And after a couple of sessions, so we had quite intense discussions about our values and how we work and everything. We were very happy to work together, and that's what we did. And so that's how I ended up at Healthy.
Okay, couple of things I want to pick up on. You spent quite some time in your career in, let's say, traditional finance. So, as you said, until the financial crisis in 2008, which I also experienced quite intensively. But I was wondering what originally attracted you in that world, because you are trained as a lawyer and then you switched over to banking.
Yeah.
What what made that attractive?
So when I was practicing law, I was focusing already on the financial industry, so the regulatory part, but also the fundraising part. So I did IPOs, I did debt raising, everything. And what I
Mm-hmm.
like so much about it is the complexity. So it's a very highly regulated market, of course. And when I started, this just begun. So it was all a bit new. So I really like the complexity, and I still actually do like the complexity of a very regulated market. It's a bit of a love-hate relationship, of course, because on the one hand, it's awful to have to comply with legislation for everything that you do. Almost taking a breath is already regulated, or to be more
Yeah.
specific, making a phone call to one of your colleagues can already be prohibited because of compliance regulations. But it also like sets guide rails and also creates lots of complexity that, especially for a lawyer, is something that you have to deal with, and also something
Mm-hmm.
that you have to deal with, but also keep in consideration why the legislation is there, because it's there for a reason, and most of the time people forget it. So they only comply with the legislation because it's there, but they don't realize why what it's there for. So that
Mm-hmm.
was a bit of a challenge for me, because people lose that out of consideration when they're working in the financial industry and they're only nagging about everything that is prohibited or is difficult.
Yeah.
It's there for a reason, and if you consider why it's there, it's actually very important and also very interesting. So yeah, complex. Very long answer to very short question, but complexity is what attracted me.
Okay, yeah, and I hear you on the complexity part, but also on the regulatory part, and explaining that to people. I've been in compliance for quite a long time, and having to explain what is possible and what is not possible is indeed doesn't always win you popularity prizes. Let's put it
Agree.
that way. So you said that you had this episode with your brother who became ill, then it seemed to go well, but eventually he passed away. And then you took a sabbatical. I was wondering what changed for you during that period. So in the run up to and during that sabbatical.
Yeah, that's a very hard question to answer, but I think, I mean, when I decided to quit my job, I was hoping to be there for him in the last phase of his life without
Mm-hmm.
having to work. Unfortunately, things moved much quicker than we all anticipated, so eventually he passed away over Christmas. So I wasn't working, which was very good. So I was with him and we were with him. He was at home, so that was very good. But it's a bit of a cliche, but if you lose someone, you always realize what is really important in life and what's not. And
Mm-hmm.
during my sabbatical, I spent a lot of time with my brother's family. So fortunately,
Mm-hmm.
we get along very well. So I spent a lot of time with his wife and his two kids,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously also with my parents. But it's more difficult to, at least in my experience, to help your parents in such a phase, because I don't have kids myself, so I don't even know what they're going through. And I'm also
Mm-hmm.
one of their kids, so that's also a bit difficult. But with my sister-in-law and the kids, I was there for quite some time and spent time with them. And everyone was like, "Oh, Karen, it's so nice of you to be there for them." But it was also for myself, of course. It was not only for them. So I even appreciated more the importance of family,
Mm-hmm.
of making time for each other. Yeah, also making time for yourself. Consider what is really important for you and also what makes you tick. So that's, I think I already kind of knew that,
Mm-hmm.
but it's something that you can explore even more, find out even more, or be confronted with even more if you're in a time like this. And one of the things, because you never know how you will deal with such an like impactful event. And what I learned from myself is that I'm not the person that will be sitting behind the window and crying all day and only thinking about the loss and missing my brother.
Mm-hmm.
But I found out that I wanted to, and like mostly remember all the good times I had with him and continue living, because I just know that that's what he wants us to do. He's also not the kind of person that would want us to be sad all day. And of course, it's not something that you can manage yourself. Of course, I mean, if you're sad, you're sad. But for me, it was, yeah, for me, it experienced it not in a way like I wasn't crying all day. I was just like, I feel him with me every second, and for me, he's still there. And I think that if I enjoy my life and do the things that I like and do the things that I know that he was proud of, I will do him much more honor than by being sad. But that's just me. So that's what I learned
Yeah.
for myself.
Okay. And then at some point you're ready to move on. What made Healthy Capital attractive to you? So how did you figure out like, hey, this is what I need to do?
Well, as I said, I was looking for something new. So
Hmm.
I wanted to do something new every time I switched jobs, and I did it quite regularly. Is because I want to learn something new, but I also want to
Hmm.
learn or use the experience that I have
Yeah.
with everything that I've done before. And I've already been thinking quite a few times that I wanted to work with young companies that I could help with my experience to grow, how compliance works, how governance works, how to become a successful company. So, and my last job was also in healthcare. And of course,
Hmm.
because of what happened to my brother, I was even like faced more with the importance of good healthcare. So when this came onto my path, I was like, this is exactly what I was looking for. I mean, I can make impact. I was always wanted to make impact. I mean, in the financial industry, of course, you're making impact, but not in a way that I was looking for.
Hmm.
As a lawyer, it's the same. Of course, you're helping people to do things, to open businesses, to run companies, but like to really make the world a better place, I don't think that's what you're doing when you're working in the financial industry. Sorry for all those people who work there. So I was looking for.
I recognize that, by the way.
So I was looking for more impact. And initially I was really focusing on the environment because that's what I do in my daily life as well. I don't have a car. I don't eat meat. I sometimes joke I don't have kids because it's bad for the environment. That's not the case. But it's something that I'm really focused on and find very important. And then I didn't actually thought that much about healthcare. And when I started working at the last job before Healthy Capital, I was working in the healthcare industry, and there I
Hmm.
realized the impact that healthcare has on people because I was
Hmm.
working at a company that was making personalized medication possible for many people. And I mean, that's a very impactful business because generic medication is for the big chunk of people very helpful, but there are also people who cannot use those generic medication because they are allergic or they're tiny, so they need different dosages. So by making medication accessible for people that cannot use the generic medication, that's very impactful. And that's when Healthy Capital came on my path, it was like, this is perfect. I can use my experience and I can learn a lot. I'm not at all creative myself, but I work with all these founders who have these amazing ideas and who are very passionate about changing the world and making healthcare better. And that's
Hmm.
exactly what I want to facilitate. But with my lack of creativity, is not something that I can contribute to. But by helping them, I can. So that's almost a match made in heaven, if I can make it a very big word. But yes,
Yeah.
it was a very good match.
Okay. So Healthy Capital, if I understand it correctly, invest at pre-seed and seed,
Hmm.
and you invest in digital health companies. What makes that particular type of company attractive for Healthy Capital, but also for you?
Yeah, that's a very difficult question to answer, or a very easy one, depends on what you're looking for. But if you look at healthcare, there's of course medtech, there's life sciences, biotech, development
Mm-hmm.
of new medication, everything that's very, very relevant. But there's also a lot of internal processes and other stuff that can improve, that have the possibility to make healthcare better, more accessible, cheaper, increase work capacity, things like that. And some of those are helped by digital solutions. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what we do. So we work, of course, lately with a lot of AI companies, but we also have platform companies, we have software, we have all kind of stuff, and it's all entangled into healthcare. It's a very
Mm-hmm.
big part of healthcare. It's very important. It's maybe not something that people think about immediately when they think about healthcare, because they think about a doctor, they think about operations or medication or whatever. But there's of course the whole process of electronic health records, processing appointments, processing results, how to track progress of a disease. So there are a lot of things people maybe not think about immediately when they think about healthcare, but they have a big impact, and that's what we do.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially the admin layer, so
Yeah,
the administrative part. There's a lot of money going into that
and time
and effort going
especially. Yeah,
and time.
yeah,
I read somewhere that most doctors spend like 10 minutes with their with their patients, and then spend 15 minutes on admin. So yeah, if there's solutions out there that help and give doctors also more time to help patients, not only in in the numbers but also in the, let's say, in the quality of care, that and if
yeah.
that
And
can be
that's
done
a big
digitally.
of a circle with the financial industry that we talked about before, because it's of course good that healthcare is very regulated, because the rules are there for a reason.
Hmm.
But sometimes people forget why they're there, and they lose sight
Yeah,
of the reason why they're there. And if you can, like, solve that puzzle, or alleviate the pressure, the unnecessary burden on the healthcare system with a simple solution, that's very good.
yeah.
Yeah, that's the main.
What makes your company investable for you? So what is the difference? Let me ask it this differently. What is the difference between a company being interesting and being something where you send them a term sheet in the end?
First of all, I told you before, I'm not involved in deal sourcing. So I do, of course, I'm more in the second phase when we've decided to invest in a company. But what we see in general is that companies, of course, the solution has to be a real solution. So it has to really solve a problem that's
Hmm.
really there. It has to be distinctive. So it has to be different from what's already there, and it has to be not easy replicable. So if it's
Hmm.
something, especially now with AI, if yeah, and a lot of people come up with great ideas, and then they build something, and they don't realize, one, that there's maybe already a similar solution elsewhere, but two, if they come up with something, how they make their solution distinguishable from the rest of the market. So how do you have your moat, as we say it, of course. And
Yeah.
finally, of course, the team is very important. So if we have an excellent solution, it has its FDA approval, MDR approval, its certification, whatever, we think it's unique, there's nothing there that competes. But if the team isn't good, there's also for us a very big thing, like, do we want to invest? Can we change the teams or not? Can we add someone there? But if the team isn't good,
Hmm.
it's not going to work either. So it's a combination of those two things.
Yeah. So what makes a team good or not?
Of course, yeah. I mean, yeah, you of course have all these standard things about what has to be in a team, what qualities have to be in there. Do people have had experience with fallbacks? How do they act when there is a conflict, etc., etc.?
Hmm.
Are they compatible? What are their values? Do they want to win? Do they want to make it successful? But also, why are they here? How did they come up with this solution? Is it because they want to make money, or is it because they want to make the world a better place? And also, is there compatible characters, and also, do they add something to each other? And some things you can very easily add. For example, sometimes we see people who may not be the best salespersons, but they are very passionate about their product. And then
Mm-hmm.
it's sometimes easier to just add some sales experience from a more junior person or someone who's not a founder. Yeah, and also, is there a click with us? Because we've also experienced once a team of people who were very experienced. They knew what they were doing. Their product was very good, but the way that they negotiated with us was, I mean, it just didn't feel right. And eventually, we decided not to do it. And then afterwards, we heard that the whole project fell apart because they were just not able to get anyone on board. Also, no customers. So sometimes it's also a bit of a feeling.
Okay, but double click for me on that feeling.
Hmm.
What gives you, if like you said, we negotiated with them and they played it in such a way that we just didn't feel right. What makes that it doesn't feel right,
Well, if
or
they
what made
don't,
it?
yeah. So in this, I mean, if they don't respect you, if they don't listen to what you say, I mean, you don't have to agree on everything, of course. That's why you're having a discussion. But you have to respect someone else's point of view, and you can not agree with it, but you can at least listen to it. But if you're like really dismissive or
Hmm.
just don't want to listen to what someone else is saying, for me, then it's very difficult to continue negotiating with you. And that's maybe something that we will discuss further on in this podcast as well, because it's something that I experience as a woman quite often. I mean, I'm not sitting on the other side on the table just to be pretty and be nice. I'm there because I bring something.
Hmm.
And if you don't take me seriously, I'm not going to take you seriously either, because we're both human beings and we have to respect each other.
Yeah, and that's the basis for any
Yep.
relationship, I would say.
Yeah.
So if you don't respect each other, then it's
Yeah. But if sometimes people just see you like a pot of money.
so really transactional.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well that's interesting. I
Very
didn't
free.
even know that existed
Yeah.
in the healthcare world.
Yeah.
But does that then also come with the fact that people are in it for the money, or were they passionate about the product itself and about the problem they were solving?
Yeah.
Just
I don't.
curious there.
Yeah. I think in this case, it was a team of people who were already in the health industry for a long, long time. And they also practiced medication for a long, long time. So I don't know, maybe it was they were a bit old school, or they had gotten too used to people always say yes to them,
Yeah.
being challenged. So I cannot exclude that that was also part of the deal.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe also the curse of knowledge
Yeah.
and experience.
Yeah.
Then okay. You said something earlier that sort of prompted me. You mentioned that you look for clinical validation, CE marking, FDA approval. Why is that important to you when evaluating startups?
Yeah, sometimes I say it's sometimes easier in healthcare because you have those requirements to get approval or get a certification to even start doing your business, because there, as I alluded on already earlier, is now with AI it's very easy to build a product or to build a website or
Hmm.
to build software or whatever you want to do, and that makes it easy for anyone else if you come up with a really original idea to copy it. But if you get further and you become more serious and you get your validation and you get your CE marking or you get your MDR approval, you
Hmm.
really stand out. So against competition, because it takes an awful long time to get there and a lot of
Hmm.
work and really a lot of commitment. And it also makes you distinguish of course from other products out there if they don't have that. So it's not a guarantee that if you get your approval that your product will beat everyone else, because that's probably not going to be the case, especially if there's someone else who may also try to do it to get the approval.
Hmm.
But it at least you have your validation that the product works, and it also shows that the team is really committed and knows what it takes to bring a product further.
Yeah. Okay. But and how common is it to see these things in place in pre-seed and seed stages?
Well, most of the time it's not in place yet, but if people already like anticipate getting it or have
Hmm.
thought about it, because what you also see is that a lot of people like, yeah, well, I'm just going to design something that does not require any approval or does not require any certification, because then it's easier and it's cheaper and I can bring my products easier and quicker to market. And that's something that also like is maybe a red flag, because if you're afraid of challenges and don't want to bring your product to the highest standard, then maybe you should do something else. So it's sometimes people are already in the process, sometimes people are planning for it, and sometimes they're already there. So it's a bit
Mm-hmm.
it's we see everything, every taste.
Okay. But you also help companies then in in those
Yes.
processes.
Yeah, where we can, of course, with our network. And we also happen to have one of our startups that we recently invested in that is specialized in helping you with getting your MDR or FDA approval. We
Okay, yeah.
even have something on our portfolio now to help our other startups. Yes.
That is cool because
Yeah.
yeah, that is really cool to then you can actually cross pollinate inside your portfolio.
So yeah, so everyone who's listening who wants to get their FDA or MDR approval, look for Guideways, guideways.ai, perfect solution for you.
Okay. So we'll include that link in the show notes for
Yes,
sure.
please.
You're also raising a digital health fund yourself, so you're not just investing money, but also sourcing that money
Yeah,
with
you have
Healthy
to. If
Capital
you want
at
to
the.
spend it, you have to get it first.
Yeah, that tends to be
The case.
this nasty little thing about money. So I was wondering, what are your learnings from being on the other side of the table? I guess.
Yeah, we really just started, so it's a bit premature for me to say something about this, where we stand or how what I'm learning, because my colleagues have done it already a couple of times, but for me it's the first time. So and we really just started. If I think about what I'm learning so far, is that it really helps if you have a conviction and know what your plan is, and wanna have a like with our fund, we really want to make impact.
Mm-hmm.
So that also makes it clear, if an investor only wants to make money, it's fine,
Mm-hmm.
but then maybe he or she should go somewhere else,
Mm-hmm.
because we want to do both, and we can do both, because we've already shown that with our current portfolio,
Mm-hmm.
the current investment portfolio. So the companies that we already have are already generating impact. So we are generating financial return, but also impact by saving a lot of cost in healthcare. And
Mm-hmm.
since the start of our fund in 2018, we invested in 19 companies, and with those 19 companies, we already saved more than 300 million euros in costs in healthcare. So for every euro
Okay.
invested, 5.19 euro has been saved in or prevented in unnecessary healthcare costs. So that's really cool, and that attracts a certain type of investors.
Mm-hmm.
And something else that we are learning now is that initially we only, or previously we only raised funds from private individuals, and now we're also talking with institutional investors.
Mm-hmm.
For me, that's not new, because that's what I've always done. So for me, private individuals are new.
Mm-hmm.
But it also shows you the dilemma which is in that market, because on the one hand, all the pension funds want to invest in VC and say that they want to invest in the Dutch ecosystem,
Mm-hmm.
support innovation. But when push come to shove, they have, of course, their regulation they have to deal with, their risk appetite, and also their ticket size. And if you only want to start investing with the smallest ticket of like whatever 50 million, 50,
Yeah.
it's going to be difficult to invest in VC, because
Yeah. Especially early stage.
especially early stage, and that's where innovation starts. So that's a bit of a dilemma, but that's not a dilemma specifically for Healthy Capital or for me, but that's something that we see in the market now. And that's something that we have to deal with, because if we want to continue supporting innovation also in Europe and want to keep the money here, people have to make some choices, and maybe that means that they have to be a bit bold. But I think ultimately it will make our ecosystem much better.
Yeah. I was wondering about two things. One is how you define impact beyond the cost savings, and the other is you talked about the differences between private individuals and institutional investors like pension funds. Let's go first to the impact. How do you define impact? How do you measure impact as a VC in your case, in addition to cost savings, or maybe that's the only metric you use? And how do you report on that to stakeholders?
Yeah, so for us, impact means keeping healthcare accessible and affordable.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you can do that by indeed saving costs. You can do that by increased capacity.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do that by decreasing the demand for care. Those are the three items that we focus on when it comes to value creation
Mm-hmm.
and also impact. And how we measure it is, you may have heard of the Life Impact Framework. It's an impact framework that was designed by a coalition of InvestNL, PGGM, Achmea, VGZ, and C-Business. It's the investment part of CZ, health insurance company in the Netherlands. And they made a framework to measure impact of investing in healthcare. And they do that on 6 dimensions. So they look at cost, they look at quality, they look at capacity, they look at environment, and they look at patient and employee satisfaction. So those are
Mm-hmm.
6 dimensions that you look for. So you come with your solution. What's the problem you want to solve? How do you do that? And when you do that, how do you score on these 6 dimensions? And obviously not every product scores on all dimensions. And you can also
Mm-hmm.
score negatively because, of course, in healthcare, it's more difficult to be good for the environment because, for example, you cannot reuse products or only to a limited amount. So that's how we do it. So the easiest part for us is measuring cost savings. So how many costs did you prevent with your solution? But
Mm-hmm.
something that we've also measured is how you increase capacity or save, time for people that they have to spend on, for example, admin or prevention or whatever. So that's how we did. So what we did is we took the Life Impact Framework and we asked all our portfolio companies to complete the framework, and we
Mm-hmm.
added it all up. We asked them a lot of questions. We challenged them, and when we thought the data was hard enough, we included it in our impact report that we published 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, and that's where the
Mm-hmm.
number came
Okay.
that I just mentioned. So the 310 million that we saved since the start of our fund, and that's only with 8 of our 19 portfolio companies. So the 11 other ones were either not far enough or the data that they showed were not solid enough for us to include it yet. Obviously, their impact will be included in the future, but not at this moment. And we also measured the capacity that they freed when calculated in FTE. So, as an example, one of our companies does home testing for multiple diseases. So that saves people going to the doctor and the doctor assistant having to take blood and draw blood and send the sample to the laboratory and then review the results, etc. So it saves some time at the GP office, as an example.
So that's the impact framework. To do life impact framework. Do you also ask startups, or do you look at when you're looking at possible investments? Do you also look for that data in or signals of that in a pitch deck?
What we do is we check if their solution meets any of the 3 or more than one of the 3 value creation criteria I just mentioned. So does the solution save costs, healthcare costs? Does the
Hmm.
solution contribute to increase of capacity or freeing of capacity? Or
Yeah.
does the solution help with reduction of demand for care? And some solutions tick all 3 boxes, some of them only 1, some 2. So that's what we look for.
But they have to tick at least one.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So second question I had was around the differences between private individuals and institutional investors.
Mhm.
Size-wise, you already alluded to it. Ticket sizes for private individuals are probably not in the 50 million area, unless you get really lucky.
Maybe if you
But
call Elon Musk. Yeah.
yeah, maybe if Elon is interested, then he can maybe do a 50 million ticket. But other than that, what are differences that you run into that make it interesting? Maybe also to talk just to institutional investors.
What do you exactly mean with what makes it
Well,
interesting?
what I heard you say was you previously you talked primarily to private individuals and now you
Mhm.
also talk to institutional investors. So I
Mhm.
was wondering sort of what causes or what caused that shift and what enabled that shift. So,
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both, of course. as you rightfully point out, institutional investors can do larger tickets, so it's easier to raise funds or to raise more money. They also bring some confidence also for individuals. If they see that an institutional invests in you, they may take your company or your VC fund more serious. It comes with a lot of knowledge and network, of course. So we have a network of ourselves, of course, of our venture partners, but obviously our investors are also a very important network for us. So if we work, we not only give money to our portfolio companies, we also want to bring them further and grow them further and make them successful. And we not only do that with money, but also with everything else that we can give them. And our network is also very important for that. And on the other hand, of course, we think, as I said before, it's very important that the institutional investors also support startups, because it's also what they were also once a startup. So they know that the importance of new innovation for the whole market and the ecosystem. It's a combination of a lot of things, but I think those are the important parts.
Cool. I want to shift gears a bit and move into into a topic that we actually met on.
Yeah.
Because we met at a panel discussion on women's health. It's a $1 trillion opportunity. I was wondering how you look at the opportunity and why you think that investors are still overlooking this part of the market.
Yeah, I find that a very hard question, because if we knew the answer, some people always say if you know the answer, you can solve the problem. In this case, I don't know whether that's the case, because I think already a lot of people have looked into what the problem is here and why. And I'm not going to talk about that because that's not my expertise, but we of course know that people always look for something that they are familiar with. They look for something that they're used to. So if a guy is looking at a lot of investment propositions and it's being presented by a woman or the other way around, it's already in translation that you have to make unconsciously, in your mind. But also when it comes to a solution, if it's something that you're not familiar with, if you don't know what it means to have, I don't know, period cramps, or if you don't know what it means to have completely different symptoms when you have a heart attack, if you're a man or a woman, if you don't even know that there is a difference, why do you even care? So I think we all know what kind of the problem is, because it's awareness, it's knowledge, it's data. But how to change that I find very difficult. So I think it's going to take a very long time, because it's like a very big problem or a big market or a big tanker, or whatever you want to call it, that you have to change. And we all know that it's very difficult to do very quickly. We, for example, talk about feminism or emancipation. Some people think we are already going too far in the other direction, that there is too much feminism or too much emancipation, and that women are taking over the world and men can no longer do anything and they don't mean anything and whatever. I think we're not there yet, but that's how people experience it. So, and I think when it comes to healthcare, it's also, or women's health, it's going to take a while. And the only thing we can do is spread the word, explain it to everyone, continue doing it. Do it with your children, with your cousins, your nephews, and nieces, everyone. Just keep explaining that there is something. You don't have to call it a problem, but there is a difference between men and women when it comes to health, and also when it comes to making all that money available to invest in those kind of things, in solutions, in analytics, in finding out the differences between men and women, how medication works for a female body and a male body, how different that is. So only when we ask attention for it in one way or another, it's going to change, and it's going to take a while before that happens.
Yeah. So it's patience and perseverance.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I was wondering, I realized that this isn't in the set of questions I sent you, but I was wondering about one thing. I ran into an investor last week who said, well, it's just a matter of business case. Because if the business case is good, men will eventually understand it and invest, because they do understand money. And I was like, okay, that's an interesting perspective. But I was wondering how you look at that.
Well, I think in the basis, I think you said it was a he. He's right.
Yeah.
Because that's obviously what we do as well. I mean, it has to be there has to be a business case. We have to make money because our investors want to get their money back and they want to get some return and we want to make impact. So of course there has to be a business case, both financially, impact wise, or whatever you find important, what your mission or vision is. But
Mm-hmm.
to also acknowledge the business case, if it was purely raw data that makes someone decide whether or not there is a business case, then I think we wouldn't have this problem that we just talked about. But I mean, it also takes a bit of conviction. Like, how many times do I have to explain to a guy, for example, I mean, period cramps are serious, or what it mean,
Mm-hmm.
how I've never given birth, but I understand it's pretty painful. And I mean, if you have never experienced this, you just don't know, and you think, oh, whatever. We've lived already how many years are there humans on the
Yeah.
earth, and it always survived, and there was never an issue. So why bother? Why is there
Why now?
there? Yeah,
Yeah.
why should it change now? And that's what I mean. The joke that you've probably heard on this podcast already a zillion times. If men would have gotten a period, we would have had issues or a lot of solutions already, or solutions, but we would have had a lot of medication already. Or if men would get menopause, it won't be.
Yeah.
Or yeah, so.
Yeah. Sadly, that is true, though.
Yeah, I know. But so yes, of course, if there is a business case, but you also have to acknowledge that there is a business case and not say, well, that's not a real issue because yeah, I mean, 10 years ago, no one was talking about menopause, or 20 years. So why is it a problem now?
Yeah, it's an emerging field in that sense. It
Yeah,
has
and,
been
and
there
yeah,
for since the start because it's pretty much built in. But
yeah. And I think even more importantly, it's not only like conditions related to the difference between men and women for your period and hormonal system, but also, as I just said, the symptoms for a heart attack in women are much different from in men. If no one asks these questions, if no one is like thinking about this, is no one even considering that there might be a difference, no one's looking for it, no one is investigating it. So I think there's a whole still very like vague or gray area of or a possibility or whatever you want to call it for solutions that go to make increase healthcare for women in particularly much better, and maybe also for men because
yeah,
yeah, there's also talk about the menopause. Like maybe also guys get something that is familiar to a menopause, but we've never looked into it.
no, that is true. Actually, I was talking to my girlfriend this morning about exactly this topic. Anyway, because women's health is underfunded and the research still looked at medicine in general looked through a male lens. That also comes with opportunities, is my understanding and my experience, by the way. So, what are the biggest opportunities that you see?
Well, I think that's and then I'm going to repeat what I just said, but I think there is so much to find and to diagnose and to investigate and also adjust treatments, medication, whatever, if you look into those differences between the female body and the male body. So there's a
Hmm.
lot of opportunity there as well. I mean, some people say that the pharma industry is a criminal organization and the only thing they want to make is money.
Hmm.
Well, I'm not going to go into that discussion here, but of course, they want to make money because they have to do a lot of in testing, etc., to find out whether medication work. But if you would look into this other half of humanity that you've rarely looked into, there's a
Hmm.
very big opportunity to come with additional solutions. So there's a lot of opportunity there, not only for pharma, of course, but also for innovations, for
Hmm.
diagnoses, for yeah, a lot.
How do you see the role of AI there?
Well, it makes it much easier, quicker to bring a product to market. So it will help us, but the only thing is AI only works when there's data.
Hmm.
And when it comes to women's health, there's not so much data. So that's a really big and serious issue and a very important one and something that we have to acknowledge.
Yeah, but isn't that also a huge opportunity also for
Absolutely.
startups to start working on? Like I had Sarah Ockhuizen from Oasis now on the podcast, and she's acknowledging on the one hand it's like really difficult or not difficult. It's easy to use AI, but it's like biased and there's not enough data. On the other hand, we need the data
Mhm.
to change the algorithms
Yeah.
and change the outcomes with that. So she's building a solution for that. So
Absolutely, and I cheer her for that, for doing that, because it's very important. But at this moment in time, the data is not there yet. I mean, all the medication have been tested on mostly male or focused on diagnosing the male part of humanity. So there is a lot of data that we have to collect still, and that takes time because
yeah.
some medication it takes years to find out if what side effects are, etc. So if we
Mhm.
only start now or maybe 2 years ago, we still have a lot of time to catch up. So, of course, there is a lot of data, but it's not the correct data. And if we want to start collecting the correct data, it will take time.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So at the panel discussion that we met at, you made a interesting remark when you were asked for advice to founders what to build and what not. You said something along the lines of, "Okay, please don't build the next wellness app."
Yeah.
And I was wondering how you define wellness in a health context text,
Hmm.
because at at least to me, there's always also a wellness aspect to many of the apps that I see or the digital solutions that I see being
Hmm.
built.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course, I said it a bit to challenge the audience, but I mean, when I think about wellness, it's like, I mean, how many solutions are there for people who have problems sleeping, want to relax
Mhm,
more, meditation, exercise, food, diet, mood tracking, whatever. There's so much there.
mhm,
But FemTech is so much more, or women's health is so much more. And the reason why I said it is I don't want to, like, I don't even know the English words, but like make women's health only about wellness. It's so much bigger and it's so much more concrete and it's so much. So it's not that wellness is not important,
mhm,
but it's if you keep focusing on wellness, a lot of people will continue to say, wait, it's if just sleep better, just do some meditation, just exercise, and all your problems will go away. No, women's health, it's a serious issue. There are serious health problems for women that are currently not being diagnosed or not being served, and it's much more than just go on a meditation app or much more like. I mean, of course, it's very important to exercise a lot, sufficient, and to eat well.
yeah,
That's the basis, but that's for everyone. But I don't want to distract the attention from the underlying issues that are also there, which we just discussed about this specificity of women's health that have to be like more like, I mean, it's not a nice word to say, but like more the hard data, like
mhm.
do they need different medication? Do they need different treatment? Is diagnosing different, etc., etc. So that's where my comment came from.
Okay, clear. So then the difference is between quote unquote just another wellness app and a company you'd invest in is mostly around, okay, does it solve a real problem and does it also
Yeah, does it address like
generate data? Does it
yeah.
need to generate data?
No, that's not that shouldn't be the purpose unless that's something that you want it to be purpose, but it has to solve something related when it comes to femtech to female specific health issues.
And not just through meditation or
No,
exercise
no,
logging.
no. Because that's applicable to everyone.
Okay. I would like to switch to a different topic. It's related to this. It's about bias, representation, and funding. Women have and continue to create a lot of awareness, but I was wondering what the role of men could be.
I mean, of course, we can only change things if we do it if everyone is on the same page. So I was at a discussion once and I what I said there is like everyone has a father, everyone has either a brother or a son or a cousin or a nephew or whatever. There are always men
Mhm.
in your surroundings that you can explain to the importance of. women's health or FemTech. So of course they have to help, because if only the women would focus on this, then nothing is going to change, because there's also the other half of humanity that has to be there as well, and it's also in their benefit because they all have a mother.
Mhm.
So for them, it's also important that there is focus on women's health. So absolutely no, we cannot do it with women only. We have to do it together.
Okay. How can we explain this effectively to men that this actually matters? Because I think that's part of the problem,
Hmm.
going back to the funding gap, but also to the research gap, that men don't have the lived experience. That is a given. That's not going to change. But how can we make men more interested in women's health and not be like, okay, we've lived for God knows how many centuries, and it has never been a problem, so why
Hmm.
now?
Yeah.
Or maybe the give the answer to the question. So
Hmm.
why is it a problem now?
It's not a problem of now, because it's there already for a long time. Not only about women's health, but also, of course, for voting rights and equal pay. But why it's important? Well, there's a different, multiple ways to answer that question. I hope every man has a woman in his life that he loves in some way, either because it's his mother or his sister or an aunt or a girlfriend or a partner or whatever. And you want that person to be happy, I hope, and to be healthy and to live long and in good health. So that's
Hmm.
one reason. A more selfish reason is you need women, because without women you would not have been born. So they have to be there. So you better take care of them,
Hmm.
because if you don't, eventually there's going to be a problem. And yeah, it's adding to your quality of your own life as well. If the other half of humanity is healthy and happy, that makes the whole world a better place. And when it maybe I'm now making it very very big thing, but if you live with someone and that person cannot function at her top or whatever gender the person is, because of a lack in healthcare or lack in treatment or lack in a difference in pay, whatever. Ultimately, you will also benefit if that person is going to a higher level to be happier and to be more healthy, because that will affect you as well,
Hmm.
directly and indirectly. And
Yeah, it frees up a lot of mind space as well.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, I know we will not be able to convince everyone on the world, but that's also the other way around. So,
Yeah. So if we talk about funding, there's at least my experience, much of the funding, a lot of the funding gap is around bias, but there's also access to networks. There's representation on the other side of the investment table. You're a woman who is actually in a in a in a VC
mhm.
environment. From your experience, what is the how important is bias in investment decisions?
Yeah, that when I look at our team, I think there's not there's a lot of awareness already. So I think here it's not much of an issue. But if you looked more in general, it is very important.
Hmm.
But I think a lot of the cases, it's also about because of lack of knowledge. And I appreciate that sometimes it feels like you're pushing the stone up the hill, like as if, what's his name? So,
Sisyphus.
Sisyphus. It's so
Yeah.
it's a lot of work and it's a lot of repetition, and you have to keep telling the same thing over and over and over and over and over again.
Hmm.
But unfortunately, it's there. I mean, I remember the first time I realized I had a privilege when I was talking to a group, and I'm still ashamed for it. But I was talking with a couple of people from Curacao, and they all were
Hmm.
people of color. And I thought I knew something, but when they told me how much racism they experience, I mean, I couldn't talk. And I thought I mean, my parents raised me well and learned me about anything. My father is Jewish, so I know about discrimination and anti-Semitism in a certain
Hmm.
way. So I know it's there, and of course I know about racism. But when I heard like actual stories of people my age or a bit older, what they're experiencing. And the same for gay friends and Muslim friends and whatever. So unfortunately, it still requires to tell those stories, even though you think you've told them a zillion times and everyone should know by now. It's still important to keep doing so. And maybe it's not nice. Nice is not a good word. Maybe you get tired of it, that it still is required, but unfortunately it is.
Does it help if there are more people telling that story? So either also men who are taking those stories to the podium, or maybe more having more women in VC
Hmm.
on the investment side.
Yeah,
Do
of
you think
course.
that would help?
Yeah, absolutely. But it's always a bit difficult, and I feel it in my because there's of course there's a lot of unconscious bias also in women themselves, and in so that's also of course another a whole big thing that's important. But I remember being at a FemTech event, and there was this guy coming with this solution for a women's health issue, and then you're like, why is he sitting there? Why is it not a woman that designed this stuff and is making this business? So it's always a bit weird how that works in your brain.
Yeah,
But
you were actually sitting on the panel. You were sitting next to a man
yeah,
who
yeah, I
was
know.
solving a
Yeah,
women's
yeah,
problem,
yeah, yeah,
pelvic health.
yeah, I know. So but the first time I experienced that, I was like, why it's a bit of a mixed feeling you have because on the one hand you think, why is it this guy there? Is he just here to make money? Which is of course
Hmm.
a bit of a weird like instinct that you have or thought that pops up in your mind. But of course we have to do it together.
Yeah,
Why not? I mean, I mean, there are a lot of women that are dealing with male-related healthcare items, so why not the other way around?
yeah. I think that that is really nicely put. So one question before we close.
Mhm.
I hear that some people say that we should stop calling it women's health femtech and simply include it in as health tech.
Mhm.
On the other hand, I think the label sort of helps distinguish it and also highlight the specific challenge that women's health is let's say a grossly underserved market. Where do you where are you on that?
Yeah, it's a bit related to what I just said. I think I think it's still necessary. But I also know that sometimes for some people, calling something femtech creates another hurdle or another reaction. So sometimes it helps to call it health tech because then there is no bias or because they just see it as a healthcare solution and that's something specifically for women because that sometimes that creates irritation with people. So from that perspective, I think I appreciate that sometimes maybe you should not use the word femtech, but when you are creating awareness and creating the importance of it, I think it's a very relevant term.
Yeah, yeah, I think so too. And let's say
You
I'm a bit
always
mixed.
yeah. Yeah, because
I'm
I remember that in my previous job, I introduced a female mentoring program for senior managers in the organization
yeah.
because I had that. I experienced it in the job, an earlier job I had, and in this company they didn't have it, so I introduced it. So it was really cool. Female leaders who had ambition to grow in the position or to maybe even become a leader themselves, talking to people who could help them. And then there were guys asking, "Why isn't there a mentorship program for us?" And I was like, "Do we really have to explain it?" But yes, you do. So
Is that because the men experience FOMO?
yeah, I mean, some of them said we are being left out, we're being
Yeah,
discriminated against, or maybe they didn't use that word, but I was like, yeah, well, join the party. Now you know how it feels.
yeah.
So sometimes you have to make things explicit to solve them. But
Hmm.
yeah, it can also create, as I said, it can also create irritation or
Yeah.
frustration with people.
But isn't that frustration then also part of the let's say the friction that
Of
needs to
course.
be there?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's what we
Yeah,
say in Dutch. Zonder wrijving geen glans. So
yeah.
without frictions, there's no great results.
But sometimes, I mean, I'm a conflict avoiding person. Sometimes
Hmm.
it's easier to solve something without making it very explicit what you're solving because it may create irritation on the other side of the table. or frustration or
Hmm.
whatever. But yes, absolutely, you have to make it visual and obvious and clear what you're doing.
Okay, one question still. Huh? You said you were conflict avoiding,
Hmm.
which is also what I try to do. But then again, sometimes my experience is that just looking for the conflict is really good and really helpful to at least make the distinction. Does that help in your role as a VC that you're conflict avoiding or
Well,
in the team maybe?
yeah. No, I mean, when I say I'm conflict avoiding, it also depends on the situation because I can also be very annoying when I think that I'm right or someone is saying something which I think is ridiculous. So it depends a bit, but I'm not someone who will pick a fight. But to answer your question, in some cases it's good, and in some cases it's the worst thing. But that's I think with every
Hmm.
character flaw or character aspect of
Trade.
someone. Yeah, trait. Sorry, it has a good thing and a good side and a bad side. So
When is it bad?
well, sometimes if you don't say something because you don't want to pick a fight or create a discussion, then but it's still an important thing to mention, then it's bad. And sometimes things are better solved if there is some friction than if you walk around it and try to solve it in another way by doing something elsewhere. Maybe I'm now being a bit fake, but I remember in one of the companies I worked for, if someone was not functioning,
Hmm.
they put someone next to that person instead of firing that person and replacing it by someone else. And that's maybe you avoid a friction or you avoid a conflict or you avoid having to let someone go, but that person is still creating a lot of shit, pardon my French,
Yeah.
in where that person is sitting. And probably that person is also not happy because they're not doing what they should be doing and not bringing results. I don't know the phrase in English, but you have that saying about stinkende wonde in Dutch. Sometimes you just have to pull the trigger.
Yeah,
To
absolutely. So I want to close. Two
Yes.
questions left.
Okay.
I'm developing an AI funding coach, or
Mhm.
rather, it's live now, fundingcoach.ai, to connect female founders and investors. From your perspective, as an investor in health tech, what is essential for that tool to empower female founders and to really make them, yeah, really close the funding gap between female founders and male founders?
I think the biggest thing is awareness. So on the one hand, you just have to know the basic on how to raise funds and be a successful founder. But
Hmm.
for me, I will always remember the moment that I had because I was working at my law firm and then they gave a training to females, to women, and I was learned that there is a difference between men and women and how they deal in specific situations. And
Hmm.
it's really stupid, but I just didn't know. I didn't know that women will never ask a question because they think that their question is stupid, while men are just asking the question, no matter what other people will think. And then what a woman does is sometimes like touch the neighbor on the shoulder and say, "Do you understand this? Because I think it's really weird." And then if it's a guy, he will ask the question in the big group, and everyone will say, "Oh, that's a good question." And I always thought that was just me, that I was just shy and I was an introvert and I don't want to ask questions. But it's very female like to do so and not to stand up and not to be proud of your achievements. And it's really stupid. But if you just know that there is a different how men and women deal with specific situations, you don't have to change yourself, but being aware of it makes a lot of difference. And it helps you in how to deal with specific situations. So
Yeah. Well, Karen, thank you very much for this conversation. Really enjoyed it. If people would like to learn more about you and about Healthy Capital, where can they go?
well, thank you first of all for your this very nice conversation. I hope I told something that you hadn't heard before. But if they want to learn more about Healthy Capital, they just go to our website Healthy.Capital, go on LinkedIn, and the same goes for me. We're pretty active on LinkedIn, so they can find us there.
Cool. And we'll include those links in the show notes.
Yes.
So, Karen Berg, thank you very much for an amazing interview. Listeners, thank you very much for listening. And until the next episode, as always, keep being awesome. Well, that's it. Thank you for listening to episode 161 of Women Disrupting Tech, titled Why FemTech Needs to Move Beyond Wellness Apps with Karen Berg. Karen and I hope you found our conversation as insightful and thought-provoking as we intended it to be. And if you have any questions for Karen, please drop them in the comment sections on Spotify, YouTube, and or Apple Podcasts. You can also use the comments to suggest guests that you want me to interview on the show. If you want to connect with Karen or learn how Healthy Capital can support your startup, please check out the links in the show notes. As usual, you can find the show notes at womendisruptingtech.blog and on my Substack via the links in the caption. There you can also find a link to my new fundingcoach.ai tool. If you found this episode useful, please take a moment to rate and review the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and or YouTube. And if you don't follow us yet, hit follow or subscribe so you never miss a future episode. Every week, you'll hear how another founder or investor is working to close a funding gap one conversation at a time. Once again, thank you for listening. I hope to see you in the next episode, and until then, as always, keep being awesome.